Let's begin. So the timer's going to start now. Alright, hello and welcome to the second Discord debate of ISD Hub World. We are picking another moderator, and hopefully everybody will watch this and it will change some views on who you're voting for. Would every candidate like to introduce themselves first? We can go, let's go just by alphabetical order of what Discord has ordered here. So Daniel Staats, Nathan Ansh, and Daniel Lee. Would you like to say your introductions in that order?
Sure.
I'm okay with it.
Alright, Daniel Staats, go.
I'm Daniel Staats. I have been on this server for just about a year, and I have seen several things that need to be changed and what can be done better. And I believe that if you bring me to the mod team, I can make a good experience for everyone else.
Alright, thank you. Nathan.
My name's Nathan. I joined the server a few months before the previous debate, and I was aware of the problems that were discussed back then, and I noticed that a lot of them have not been fixed yet. And so I want to try using polls and other methods to get more feedback, instead of us just having this discussion once every 5 months when we have a debate.
Alright, Ansh, you're up.
Alright, I'm Ansh. Hello. I joined this server a few months back, and the reason I want to become a mod on this server is because I've noticed that there's a lot of things on the server that aren't, like, the rules are, like, too flexible, and people can often feel like they're treated unfairly because of that. And, you know, there's, like, random mutes and kicks and stuff thrown around often. So I feel like there should be, like, a stricter rule set. That's why I want to run for mod.
Alright, thank you. Daniel Lee, you are next.
My name is Daniel Lee. I've joined this server pretty much ever since it began. The reason I'm running for mod is because lately I've been observing this server, and there's been a lot of discussions that weren't really something you want to see in a school, like a server meant for a school. So what I want to do is like make the rules basically so people can understand them better, because there's been a lot of misunderstandings about it.
Alright, thank you. So those are our 4 candidates, and we can begin with the first question now. So I would like to ask Ansh, because you have a personal opinion on this. So what about this server is unsatisfactory to you?
Well, mainly what's unsatisfactory to me, as I mentioned in my intro quote, is that the rules can be too flexible at times, and many people can feel like they are being treated unfairly because of that. Like, as you've seen, for one example with Izzy, there's been a lot of times when, you know, he's just gotten muted or his messages deleted just because he sent some random GIF or whatever. And I feel like that's not very fair, considering that other people have done the same thing and have not really gotten, you know, punished for it. So I feel like the rules that should be stricter and to a point where everybody knows what they can and can't do, and there isn't a different punishment on a case-by-case basis.
Alright, would anybody like to respond to that or give their own opinion?
I would like to.
Alright, go.
Alright, so adding on a bit to what Ansh said, it's not only that some people, like only a specific set of people are getting muted or just randomly kicked at times. There's also, like, there's not much, but there's also a bit of bias, and like I've mentioned before, a lot of misunderstanding, and partially some behavior from this server has been because that people didn't really understand the rules or tried to find loopholes around it just because of how vague it is. And that's one thing I'm really unsatisfied about, because it just makes a lot of unnecessary drama that no one really needs.
Alright, thanks. Any response to that? Or would Nathan or Daniel Staats like to give their answer to this question?
Yes.
You can go.
Alright, Daniel Staats.
Okay. So I believe that the rules in this server can be improved, but that's just simple of changing a few things or adding some rules. I want what I would like to add is basic, like, ballpark responses for punishments, because if you were to break the rules, you have no idea what your punishments would be. So this would lead to times that you feel like that it's unfair, or it's just not of what a server should be giving you.
Alright, thanks, Nathan.
So I'm going to disagree a bit, because changing the rules has proved to be not such a simple thing. It was one of the biggest talking points of the first debate, and if you haven't noticed, we still don't have that much changed, and people still talk about it. So we need a different approach. And many of the things that were talked about in the first debate, such as spam, ambiguous rules, arguments, toxicity, and things like that, still are happening, and people still complain about them. And for instance, the logs channel, Ronan actually mentioned that at the first debate. Roy immediately batted it down, but now here we are, we have a logs channel. So we need to talk more about what we want to try, or what would be worth trying, so that we can improve more things.
Alright, thanks. Does anybody have a response to what Nathan has said, or what anybody has said so far, or can we move on?
Well,
I have one last. Oh, wait, okay, never mind.
Daniel Staats.
I agree with what you say that we need more specific rules, but I believe that having more specific punishments is one of the things that should come along with it.
Daniel Lee, what do you have to say?
Kind of adding on to what Nathan said. Yes, the rules are it's still a pretty big topic, but it's mainly because there's been so many disagreements on how the rules should be structured, and also that no one really took too much action about it. The members of this server were actually kind of pushing it a lot. But I remember Roy was also in this discussion, and it was mainly because some of the admins were unwilling to change the rules. Or
Okay.
they just didn't like how members suggested it.
Alright, thanks, Daniel Lee. There's no more interjections, then we can move on to the next question, number 2. After hearing all these candidates' ideas, is there anything you'd like to add to say how to solve this? Like, how would you solve these unsatisfactory points?
In terms of enforcing the rules and punishments, as Daniel Staats mentioned, the thing about like censorship, for instance, is that there just needs to be consistency. That's the only problem. And the other thing is you just have to be clear about what you're enforcing, because lately there's been a lot of like people getting muted or warned, and they say, why was I muted? Why am I getting warned? And I mean, it's in the Fifth Amendment that you have the right to be charged with a crime. I'm not saying the Fifth Amendment applies here. I'm saying it's in the Fifth Amendment because it's a good idea. So we should be more clear about why we're punishing people. And we should also be more consistent with how we're punishing people.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Anybody else have an answer to that question?
Yes, I would say that I think that having more specific rules is a good thing, but how we are going to accomplish this is, I think that because we have been having polls about how people feel about the rules, but nothing has been changing. I think that we should hold polls about what to change about the rules. We should see if they're satisfactory, make several different drafts of rules, and then have people vote on what they believe the rules should be.
Anybody else have an answer to that question? Not really having too much action here today.
I'd like to add on to Nathan on what he said about the censorship part. So I agree with him there. I feel like the censorship is just all over the place. When you look at the logs, one of the more recent mutes was when Eli got muted. he, as far as I've seen, he still has not gotten an answer for why he's been muted, or he was muted. Not he's unmuted now, but like he was muted for a while. He still has, he still doesn't know, and I feel like that's not very fair for the admins to do. If they don't, if they can't communicate with their server members, then they're kind of failing at their job. And another point I'd like to make about the admins themselves is that a lot of the admins are inactive. They don't do much. The only real admins who I've seen actively trying to help the server improve, at least I haven't seen the admins channel, but I've seen everything that goes on in
All right, thanks. Chase, are wrapping up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sure. So basically, the admins are inactive, and that's bad.
Okay. So we can move on to the next question if there's not too much going on with this one. So do you think that written rules are especially important? Like writing them down and making them really specific, or do you think rules like common sense and mutual limits are good? Nathan, you can go on first on this one, because I think you have an answer.
So you don't have to write all the rules down. You can because we're not writing a whole constitution and you're following every single line to the bar, or however the phrase goes. But if you're not writing them all down, you have to know the rules from somewhere. So if you're not writing them down, you should be clear and, like I said, consistent about how you're enforcing them. And if you're just warning people, they're like, oh, I know not to do that. But you have to tell them why you're warning. So yes, the specific rules can help, but you still would have to enforce them and be very clear how you're enforcing them.
All right, so you're in for more specific rules and also enforcing them.
I think either solution would work if you are aware of what problems you're trying to tackle.
Does anybody have an argument?
Another thing.
All right, Daniel Lee, you haven't gotten a lot of time, so you can go.
Okay. Another thing I'd like to mention is that the fact that the rules literally just says common sense, that can be stretched very, very far, because the way common sense is structured is based on your own beliefs and what you yourself think is bad or good. So I definitely don't think it's an okay rule to have, but it definitely shouldn't be carrying the whole rule set. And I also agree with Nathan. We need to have a bit more specific rules, and we also we should probably make them a bit more specific. So if a user kind of violates the rules, and because they didn't read it, we can use that to back that up.
Daniel's thoughts? I think you had something to say.
Yes, I believe that written rules are much more important than social obligations, because let's say someone new joined the server and they had no idea what was going on and they broke one of the rules. We need to have written rules, point them to what they did wrong. We need to have consistent punishments, and we need to tell them what they did wrong so that they don't do it again. Having obligations instead of rules is not a very efficient way of enforcing the server, because there is a bunch of leeway onto what we think is breaking the rules, and that can lead to a lot of bias.
Do we have any final thoughts on rules and if they should be written or not?
I have a short point to make. I'd just like to mention
Go for it.
that the rule set should be a lot stricter, because I feel like all members should have the right to know exactly what they are and are not allowed to do, so that they don't do anything under the impression that they're following common sense and then get muted or warned or kicked.
All right, so from here I would like to move on from the written questions. We can come back later if it can be brought up, but I'd like to move on to Calvin now. So if you have anything to say, any questions to ask the candidates from the stream chat, Calvin.
Okay, yeah. So, Beware Me has a question addressed to Jamie, not me, but I'll still read it. What are your opinions on all the extra roles? Should we keep them or get rid of some of the more useless ones like the noodle role because it's or not because that is the OG members and the worm of Dansta rule because that does nothing as far as I'm aware of. Or another idea they like adding even more. Here's Dude. Yeah, this is for the candidates.
Oh, I don't think the number of roles we have on the server inhibits the functionality of it. So really, it's up to the current admins how many roles they want to juggle. The noodle, I don't know too much about it, but like the noodle isn't hurting anyone. So at the end of the day, I don't think it makes a huge difference. If it doesn't have huge functionality, then it just doesn't matter.
I would
Okay.
also like to say something.
All right.
Okay, what are your opinions on the other roles?
Okay, so I can respect Jamie's idea of wanting to keep roles specific and having not color roles because it has like a neat and orderly form, which is usually what a school server is meant to be. And these extra roles, I feel like as long as they don't show up as your main color, they should be okay because the main color is supposed to show like where you stand in the server. Like, purple is IHS, red is builder, and then blue is just non-IMS or non-IHS because it shows like what relations people have to the server. So as long as they don't show up as your main color, I feel like having too many like different kind of useless roles are okay.
Anybody else have an idea?
Yeah, I feel like the roles, it doesn't really have any effect on the thing. Like, if you don't want to add more roles, that's fine, and if you want to keep the roles you have, or remove roles, or whatever, it's fine, as long as we have the base set of, IMS, IHS, and or neither of these schools. And as long as we have those, then I feel like we're good, and the roles don't really matter.
Okay. Calvin, would you like to ask Vivu's question, or should I do it?
Yeah, no, I was going to it right now. So candidates, regarding the recent admins versus the people of this server drama, how would you stop this from happening in the future?
I wouldn't call it that. If you're referring to the thing that happened between Roy and another member, I think that's something for those two to settle themselves. In terms of just general debate and arguments, Jamie thinks they're a good thing. I think they're a good thing as long as nobody's hurt, which has been happening a lot. People getting literally bullied out of the server, which should not be happening. And so we should definitely moderate certain conversations more than they are being moderated currently.
Okay, Beware Me has another question. Plans on inactive members. Are you going to give them an inactive role or just kick them or just ignore them?
Can we have someone else answer this question?
I believe that the inactive members aren't doing any harm. I think that an inactive role wouldn't be a bad thing, but I don't see a reason that it would have to exist.
Okay, does anyone else have an opinion on it?
They're here, but they're not. You're not going to be hurt by their lack of presence, so it shouldn't matter.
So,
Alright,
Water has a question that I think we might have missed. How would you de-escalate a situation that was happening? For example, if two people were getting heated and they started insulting each other, what is your default de-escalation protocol?
I have a way for that.
Sure.
So basically, if there is a situation where something like that happened, what I would do, I wouldn't take a side of I wouldn't take a side at all. I would just ask the number of how many people are arguing. Let's say 3. I would have to ask the 3 of them to just step off Discord, and if they continue, I might mute them for a short 5 minutes, because if they're just going to keep attacking each other, they're not really doing much for the server, and it's just kind of ruins the atmosphere of what the server is supposed to be. So if you mute them for like 5 minutes at least, and just let them cool down a bit, I feel like that would be simple, but that would only be like kind of an extreme case. If you can
Okay.
resolve it with just words, that would be great.
Okay, Daniel. Thanks for your answer. I would like everybody to answer this. So can we get another candidate, please?
Yes. I believe that muting them is not the solution that you should jump to, even if it is a last resort. It shouldn't be used at all, because if they are in a position where they are mad enough that they're hurling insults over the internet, they are mad enough that muting them would just stifle their anger, and it would make them feel like they weren't being represented. I think that de-escalating the situation by trying to understand what both sides have, what they have against each other, and asking them to calm down and, the third grade stop. Yeah, that. Because
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. We have 2 other candidates that haven't answered yet. Like I said, I would like everybody to answer this.
I think if it's a situation where there's an obvious instigator and an obvious victim, it's necessary for admins to step in, and depending on the nature of the conversation, maybe you'd want to mute. It probably depends on the case. If it's 2 people like going at it, then I think either it's a situation where you kind of just have to let them resolve it themselves, maybe tell them to go to DMs or whatever, that's a popular option. But if they're not hurting anyone else in the process, it's kind of their business. And it's not necessarily the admin's job to interfere with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ansh.
So I totally agree with Nathan. I feel like it's not, unless it's related to the school or the Minecraft server or anything like that, the admins shouldn't get involved in other people's personal arguments. They should just ask them to move to DMs, and if they don't, then it might be a good idea to administer a mute. But if they, because it shouldn't be your job to be telling somebody else, what they should and shouldn't do. You're not like a better person anyway to be able to say something like, hey, get off Discord or whatever, because it's not your job. Your job is to make the community a better place, and you should just ask them to move to DMs, and if they don't do that, then administer a mute, but don't try to solve their problems for them.
Well, and as far as I'm concerned, arguing isn't against the rules, no matter like if it's a toxic argument, it's still not against the rules. The rules just say like, here's a few extremes that you should avoid, and then common sense. And so if common sense is defending your viewpoint with whatever means possible, then you can't really stop them from defending their viewpoint.
All right, I think that's good enough for this question.
Daniel had an interjection to my argument.
Daniel Lee?
Yeah, okay. So, regarding what Panda said about like not having a server meet, yeah, going to DMs is a good idea, and I do also agree that if it's personal, we shouldn't take a side because we have no right to interfere in their personal business. But the thing is, if they don't go to DMs and they just keep flinging it at each other in like general or something, everybody can see what they're talking about, and it's just kind of uncomfortable. And other users would want to like try to resolve the conflict themselves. So if they won't move the DMs, which in most cases they probably will, I do feel like a server mute does have to be necessary if they won't like just stop arguing in general and move it somewhere else or just resolve it entirely.
Yeah, I agree with that. Having a mute if they refuse to calm down or take it to the DMs is an absolutely fine solution.
All right, that's all valid points. I think it's about time to wrap this up now because we're also running out of questions, and seems that you're not all, not disagreeing on too much, but we have enough disagreement for a vote. So, do you guys have any closing comment? Oh my god.
What the hell?
I think this was unnecessary. Thank you.
This is pissing
Alright,
me off.
do you
This
guys
happened
have
while
any
I was
closing?
speaking too.
Alright, Calvin, do you have anything to say? Sorry, I'm getting kind of confused.
No, I don't have any closing remarks.
Does anybody here
I
have
would
any
say
final questions?
Fill
on
out
any of
the
the
poll
mods?
that's pinned in general so we can get more feedback. Vote for me or Daniel Lee, and have a nice day.
Any closing comments from any of the other candidates?
Thanks for coming and thanks for listening to what I have to say. And, have a nice day.
Yeah, about the same. Thanks for listening to us, and, well, just vote for who you want.
Did Daniel Staats already give a comment? I didn't notice.
No. Yeah. Vote for who you like. All of the candidates are a good choice. It's who you think you agree with the most.
Alright, thanks everybody for coming. I think that was a very successful debate. All the candidates give valid points. So this will be posted on YouTube with timestamps, hopefully. Yeah, and we'll get the ballot up pretty soon. Again, thanks for coming.